You got it. Let's go over to our friend Garry Cobb from Fox 29 in Philadelphia. And Angelo was really great at 3:30. Xander, just a couple minutes here, and now our dear friend. Here it is, Garry. Ready to roll, man. Training camp, right? Tomorrow they report.
Yeah, it's that time. I think that there are a lot of people, I mean, everywhere you go around here in Philadelphia, in the area, people are expecting a lot. I think that, I like a lot of the moves they've made. I understand. I think that coaching-wise, I think they made some good decisions there. But the players ultimately have to go on the field and get the job done. So we'll see what happens there. But there's a lot of excitement. And with the excitement is expectation. So, they know. I mean, these guys have been here in Philadelphia, and they know that, they do expect quality play, especially you got a team. This team had been to the Super Bowl. Many of these players, same guys. So people are expecting a good season, an outstanding season, not just good, a great season. That's
Garry,
what they expect.
I had a conversation with Carl Dunbar, the defensive line coach for the Steelers, and it's true that the Steelers are in the process of fielding phone calls to potentially move Cam Hayward. Now, you would be looking at a guy like that. He's 35 years of age. He would be kind of put in the same role of what Adama Sue was in that 2022 role. Last year, he played in 11 ball games, had 2 sacks. The year before that, he had 10.5. The year before that, he had 11 sacks. Yeah. So you're talking about a guy who's kind of now coming down to back 9 here. Is that a kind of guy that you would think that you would add? Can you imagine Milton Williams, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis, and Cameron Hayward that you would have going into that Packer game? I would feel a lot more comfortable if I had that crew going into that game.
I think so. And the thing that he brings, which was what we've been talking about, which is he's been there. I mean, the guy has played at a very high level, and he's been, excellence. I mean, so he knows what it takes to get up to that excellence level. And he's a big body. So he's a guy who he's got the kind of personality that you would want, similar to some of the guys that just left, but guys that have played on Pro Bowl and really, for that matter, Hall of Fame type of level, that, the guy is the guy that can communicate to these other guys. And if you look at that defensive line with the young players they have, I think he's a great guy to be working with Jordan Davis. Come on. He's a big body, just like Jordan Davis, big guy. And he's going to be able to, push him, talk to him on the same level. So I think it would be great if they had him, on this football team, because, look at that defensive line. Really, amazingly, I think those 2 youngsters are going to have a lot to do with how far this team goes this year. And I'm talking about this year. How much growth do they make this year? I know you can expect things up the road, but this year, and I think that, bringing a Cam Hayward in here is going to help you get to that level. And, he could come in. And you know what? When you got a great player pushing you that has done it, there's something, you got nowhere to hide. I mean, like, this guy's being straight up with you, and he's telling you what you got to do in order to get to that greatness level. And I think that would be great. It would be great to have him in working with Jordan, I think he would be, of course, another guy that can go in there and play. But I think the biggest thing he's going to be doing is he's going to be an example there, though.
Absolutely there. Yeah. I want to read you something here. And this is what's being said in Washington, D.C. as the Commanders get ready to go to camp here. Brian Johnson, I just had Angelo on, and this is intriguing here. So Brian Johnson, who's now the assistant head football coach to Dan Quinn and is the passing coordinator in Washington with Cliff Kingsbury, is telling people that a year ago, Nick Sirianni called 95% of the play calls in 2023, which led to the frustration of Jalen Hurts and Brian Johnson. And this is some of the things that Diane Rossini was reporting, that there was a disconnect from the beginning of the year to the end of the year between the quarterback and the head coach, because he was too knee deep into changing up the game plan on Brian Johnson. Now, Brian Johnson, like Angelo said, there's a part of me that goes, well, he's trying to look good for his new employer too. So you got to take a little bit of that into it as well. But there's got to be some truth. I don't think Brian's just going to throw that out there that, hey, Nick was meddling in the game plan, and all the game plans that Jalen and I liked and agreed on, he parachute in and changed the approach up. What's your takeaway on that?
That wouldn't be a shock to me. I could see that happening because there seemed to be discomfort, with Jalen. I didn't like his body language, and especially at the end of the season, you see something was awry. I mean, Jalen is a very coachable guy. Come on, the guy was raised by a coach. Okay, he's not a kid that is going to make a lot of trouble, but you could see that something was awry. Something wasn't, it wasn't flowing, and I could see that. I could see that being something. And in fairness with Nick, this is his team. See, and that's where, and you know what else? You know what makes this sound so true? At the fact that they told him, no, Kellen is running things on the offense.
And maybe that's why when Jalen was asked the question this offseason, because there was a new role for him, right, Gary? He said, I really don't know, because he's now being put in a different role than he was a year ago. So personally now, it makes it even more sound with more sense, because Jalen was just answering a question. Well, last year he was in a different role than he is now.
I mean, it seems like I could see where not a big stretch. I mean, it's unusual to me to hear a organization make it a point to say, okay, head coach, you are not running the offense. Okay.
Right. I mean,
that's unusual for them to do something like that. And that says something. And in fairness to Nick, the fact that he was meddling, I could see where if you're a young coach and things aren't going well, I can see where you probably will meddle. Now, that might not work out well, which it didn't work out in this instance. But clearly, I could see last year he would have been meddling because you got Brian Johnson. Could he say anything to stop him from meddling? Does he have the power? No, he doesn't. But you could see Kellen Moore may have heard of that, may have found out, and made it a point to say, okay, I'm running the offense. Okay, now if I'm coming here, I'm running the offense. You see, he must have made it a point to get that in his deal.
Gary, do you think Jalen went to management, and when asked the question, you would have to think that ownership and the GM asked him his takeaway, and he said, well, we would put this game plan together, and here would be Nick coming in here, parachuting into the game plan, and it kind of got in the way, and all of a sudden now, because now, people are going, why are you talking about last year? Because, well, you don't want that to be a precursor to what could happen this year. You want that resolved.
That's right. Now,
do you believe that's been resolved?
Okay. I think that how they found out, I don't know, but I can see where somehow they did find out. And that's a big issue, because, you got to have, the quarterback, you got to be working with him. Now, sometimes you might overrule him, but you're working with him. You're trying to do what he feels best, because they even made it a point to say that that's the way they did the offense. And most offensive coordinators, they do that, which is they'll be looking at a lot of plays and everything. And then getting near the end of the week, they'll tell the quarterback, hey, which one of these do you like? What do you like out of this group? What do you feel good about? So the quarterback has some say about it. So I'm not saying that, there was confrontation from that standpoint or whatever. Well, all I know is they did get upstairs to where it seems like they found out, hey, Jalen wasn't happy with A, B, and C, and maybe they asked him point blank. Maybe they already knew. Yeah. But whatever it is. And then I could tell you that when he was sitting over on the bench with his body language was saying he don't like something. I mean, look, I'm looking at him sit up. What's wrong with Jalen? Look at him over there.
I mean, the Buccaneer game, if you didn't read that in the Buccaneer game, that he didn't like what was going on, I think that was the quintessential moment right there that he was talking right there when it just looked like he really didn't like what was going on. Hopefully we can reconnect here with our friend Garry Cobb here, because I got a couple more questions I want to get a hold of him with, especially as we get ready to roll into training camp here. Some of the questions that we went with Xander, there were still a couple more that we wanted to throw in here a little bit. So we'll do that. Now, look, again, Xander brings a great point up. Sills, that's last year. You guys are directly, and you're right. What I don't want to have happen here, okay? What I don't want to have happen here is you don't want to see a precursor, okay, to anything. Okay? You really don't want to see anything here where it would be a precursor to what could carry on into the regular season here. So let's reconnect here with Garry. And I'll say this to you too, Garry.
Yeah.
Going into training camp here tomorrow, everybody reports, as you know.
Yep.
I wrote these down that I'd like to see the Eagles concern themselves with on getting better and address, because this is the areas of the team that I think they're going to be attacked. Do you believe one of the things that they'll be working on is blitz pickup for Hurts? And I pointed this out earlier. Maybe early you go max protection with Barkley. You keep him back there. You got a brand new center. You got a brand new coordinator. You're going to want to keep that pocket as clean as possible early on for Jalen Hurts, especially if you're asking him to throw the ball more and be more of a progression reader and reading the tree. So do you think that that's going to be an A1 priority going into this camp, is recognizing blitzes?
I definitely think that's going to be part of it. But I thought, from what I could see, that Jalen was reading blitzes. It's just that I didn't see what adjustment they were supposed to make, because I would see him out there where you can tell right away. He stops the call. He knows, hey, these guys are coming. Where there would be in the middle of the game, you could see he stops. He's looking around. He's talking. But they will have adjustments. That's got to be part of their conversations with Kellen Moore before they decide to sign him. They talk to him about blitz pickup and what did he believe in and all that. And you better believe that was part of it. So I definitely think that's something they're going to be working on at training camp. It's going to be a part of their of the things they know they've got to improve on. But I definitely think that's something that they went over with Kellen Moore. Come on. It would be malpractice if they hired a guy and didn't sit down and made it a point to say, okay, all right, close the door. Look, let's talk. Hey, get up on the board. We want to talk about blitz pickup. What do you believe in? What's your philosophy? What are we going to do? They probably gave him some tape of the Eagles and said, hey, what changes do you think we need to make and everything? I mean, it would be malpractice if they didn't do that to him, because that probably was the first thing they started talking about, And so I definitely think that that's something they're going to be working on early in camp and going over and everything. So we're looking forward to it.
All right. How about this one, Garry? Do you think that there's going to have to be an emphasis on opening up the middle of the field this camp, where last year they were throwing to the numbers? Yep. They just completely got away from it, whether that's establishing Goddard or what have you, wide receiver 3, something. Yep. That's got to be a priority, don't you think?
Without a doubt.
Attack the middle of the field this year.
You got to attack the middle of the field, and the thing about it is it's an area that's hard to stop people from attacking, because the ball gets there quicker. A lot of times you got, I play linebacker. I'm not taking a shot at the linebackers, but you got wide receivers running routes. Many times you're running it against the linebackers, because if they're in a zone, the linebackers have got to cover that area in there. So you definitely want to work, the inside. And when you've got a big body like, A.J. Brown, I'm throwing it to him. Yeah, I'm going to throw it to him inside and everything, because he's got the kind of strength and power where he can get inside of a corner. And most of the corners, they can't stop him from going inside.
But Garry, why don't they drop him in the slot more and have him go against safeties?
You know
because
what?
He's a mismatch against most of those guys. I mean,
right.
He's a mismatch even against certain linebackers.
You're
not going to cover that guy.
I think I think you're definitely right that that we're having him work inside. Again, you're talking about a guy with basically a tight end spot.
Yeah.
You know, but he's got wide receiver speed.
He's built like Julio Jones.
That's right. He's built like Julio Jones. You said it. You hit it on the head. And in fact, it's kind of funny. I don't know which one he was working with, but he was walking with one of the linebackers coming in. I'm going like, hey, man, which one of you guys is the linebacker? You know what I mean? Because he does. He doesn't look like a wide receiver. He looks like a linebacker. So they definitely could have him work inside. And, he's a tough guy that will go in there and catch the ball. So I definitely think it's something that they can definitely utilize. But really, I could see Kellen Moore. He's probably licking his chops with all of the talent you got. But you better believe you hit it on the head when you're talking about working inside, blitz. The other thing is motion. Now, of course, they were running motion out there with those 3 workouts they had, during the offseason. They were running motion. They were running motion. I mean, now that's malpractice for them last year not to want. Come on, come on. You're really putting the defense in a position. You're forcing them to do things they might not want to do. Because when a guy goes in motion, really, they're going to tell you what defense they're in because nobody's running with the guy. They're in a zone. Somebody's following the guy there in man-to-man. I mean, it's not that complicated. So you do things when you utilize, and also, of course, you can utilize things on zone. In your running game too when you go motion. But without a doubt, they're going to be utilizing motion. And they're going to be forcing teams to do what they want them to do. And that's what you want an offense to do is force the defense to do things that you want them to do rather than letting them dictate to you.
2 last questions here for you. Do you not agree, too, that one of the things that teams I think are going to test early, they're going to run the ball at Philly. They're going to see because that run defense fell apart now to what they did a year ago. The first 6 games, I think they were either 1 or 2 against the run, and both Davis and him were very dominant against the run, and that thing kind of fell off the cliff as the offense sputtered, and I think both sides of the ball were really harmful to each side. But don't you think one of the things they're going to try to do, like Green Bay with Josh Jacobs, they're going to tee it up and try to run the ball right down Philadelphia's throat because they can't believe in those linebackers. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Gary, when I see Devin White, I hate to do this to Eagle fans.
Yeah.
He's just a dude.
Yeah.
He's not I mean, nobody is an elite linebacker, Gary, that's on a $3 million 1-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Patrick Queen just signed a 3-year, $18 million annual deal. That's a guy whose market value is high, not Devin White.
I think you're right. I mean, he knows he's coming in here. He knows he's got to prove himself. Now, you see his size. If you're an offensive coordinator, you say, now that's who we're running at. You see that? Right? We're running right at him. So they are going to try to do different things to run at him. Now, there are things you can do defensively to protect the guy. We'll see what the Eagles decide to do. But clearly, that is one of the things that he's got to prove that he can stand up against a running game. He could utilize his quickness, his smarts, whatever you want to do, but they're definitely going to run at him. So that's not news because he's got to prove himself. He knows he comes up here having to prove himself, and they are going to run at him. I know I would. I mean, you see, he's not a big guy at all.
I'm going to throw this last one at you here. I talked to Belichick years ago, and I asked him, I said, Coach, when you put a game plan together offensively and defensively, whether it was Charlie Weiss, Bill O'Brien, what have you, defensively, I said, what's the number one thing that you identify? He goes, I identify knowledge. If that player has lack of knowledge of what he's being asked to do or experience, it's not about talent. Everybody in the NFL is talented. What you do is you go after lack of knowledge. You've got a lot of young players in that secondary.
Yes, you do.
So if I see Quinyon Mitchell back there, I'm running crossing routes. I want to see how they're going to react to that. If you're
Mhm.
putting Cooper DeJean in the slot and you put Quinyon Mitchell, to me, is that a remedy for success? And again, I get it, Gary. You got to play the young kids. You got to get them out there. You got to understand it. But Belichick, that's right. This guy Yale here, Belichick attacks football IQ. And it's not that you don't know yet. It's that you
Mhm.
haven't done it yet. So, I mean, are you concerned with the youth in the secondary? You may have a lot of bodies back there, but you got a lot of bodies that don't know really actually the technique of playing in the NFL yet. To me, that's a big time concern.
Well, it definitely it's something that when you got young players, and you've been through. You look in the huddle. I mean, I've been playing with young guys where you look in the huddle and you can see their eyes, and you're going like, look now, if you got to go to you need to go to the restroom, buddy.
How about this, Gary? How many times have you had a defensive lineman turn around and look at you and say, I did this to Irv Randall, who was with
Mhm.
the Buccaneers. I turned around, they called the defense. I go, am I supposed to be in a 2 technique or 1 technique? He said, shade 3. I'm like, shit. I go, whoa, because this guy, how many times have you been asked that by a young player? Hey, where do I line up?
That's happened. That's happened quite a bit. I mean, that's part of being with young players. But I wouldn't even wait for them to ask. I'm telling them where they got to go. This is what you got to do. This is what you need to be looking for. They got such and such in the game. Coming over, and then when they come out in the formation, watch this or watch that. Hey, watch he's going to run across the route. Stay inside. You just talk to them. And it's good when you got young players. You talk to them, and
do they have enough players like that in the huddle to be able to communicate across the line now?
That we'll have to see. I couldn't tell you that right now. I think Devin White is a seasoned guy. He should be able to help them some because, he's been out there and everything. But they do have, I tell you this, they do have talent. Now, some of those kids, I'm telling you, they got some talented kids. The kid Isaiah Rodgers, man, he got me, man. This kid can play. I mean, cover, quick, just.
Would you put him in the slot or would you put him at corner?
Well, it depends on how the other guys are playing, because I think he can play.
He's versatile enough. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's versatile enough. And some of the other kids I saw, I was very impressed with the talent. They do have talent back there in the secondary. So it's a matter of you don't try to feed them too much too fast. Meaning, like, you don't need the guys playing 3 positions or 2 positions. Some of the young kids, they play 1 position initially. Don't try to feed them and put too much in their head. But some of those kids can come out right there and they'll be able to help them. I think the 2 top corners those kids are going to be able to come and help. What they be? You got him, so they can cover people man to man. The kid DeJean, especially from what I saw him on the tape, kid doesn't mind tackling, so he could play inside. See, you could have him doing different things, even at safety and things. See, where he's got to tackle. But I like them. I mean, the kids can cover. They do have enough people back there that they have talent in the secondary. The big thing is that they make sure that they don't get too complicated too fast. And I feel good about things because, I like a lot of things that coach is going to be doing. And I'll tell you, they looked good. They were just playing a lot of zone in the camp. They were doing a good job of playing zone, matchup zone. They don't just play just a drop, and I tell you, fundamentally, I loved it because I see last year guys just dropping in the zone. That's not the way you play zone. You gotta cover the guy in your zone. You're in man to man and the guy in your zone, and then you gotta slide and you gotta, pass people off, and you can see that that's the way they're going to be playing this year. They're not going to just be giving up yardage just because they're in a zone. So I really feel good about what they're going to do. I think that they are going to learn a lot. But as I said, I hope they don't try to feed these young guys and have them trying to do too much too fast. But they've got the talent back there to cover people because they got some corner ability where guys can run, and much more than they had last year. They got guys that can run with receivers and cover people. So, we will see. I'm excited to see what they do.
I'm going to sneak one in on you here with Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff. How important are those 2 players to the success of the Eagle defense this year, Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith, because Garry, you got to play Nolan Smith. I mean, you can't, there's no more babying. He's got to get out there and he's got to play.
Yep.
And he's got to be on the field. Like you and me know this now. Maybe when me and you played, first and second down were the money downs, but the money down has always been the third down. If you're not on the field that third down, you're not a money player in the NFL. You've got to be on the field on third down.
Yes.
Those two guys have to be what, in your opinion, this year, 2024?
You know, they got to be able to beat a one-on-one block, you know. And from what I see, the defense they're going to be playing, they're going to get them in one-on-one situations, and their job is to beat that tackle in a one-on-one pass rush situation. And that's what it's going to come down to. And that's the way he's run his defense, meaning he really does different things where he will get one of his premier pass rushers. He'll get them one-on-one. He'll force them to block the guy one-on-one. But you got to beat that one-on-one block. So that's what, you know, that all these youngsters, that's what they got to be able to do. And Smith, you know, hey, he's got the speed. He got to do it. It's just a matter of technique with him, because he can burn it coming around that corner. And he just got to be smart. He needs a power move. You can't.
Is he big enough?
What's that?
Is he big enough?
We're gonna find that out. Like I said, you got to have a power move, some type of power move.
Yeah,
it can't just be speed. But he's got the speed. The whole thing is, can he be powerful enough to make them, you know, respect him power-wise, where you can force that tackle to stop his feet, and then you outrun him around the corner. That we're going to find out. I mean, he's supposed to have been in the weight room, and I'm sure he's been eating good. We're going to find, you know, I'll find out when you find out.
Hey, well, we're going to find out September 6th. How about
That's
this, man? Tomorrow they report, and rent is due tomorrow, isn't it?
Hey, I'll be out there on Wednesday to see what's happening.
Absolutely. First practice is Wednesday, 10 a.m.
Yep.
Garry, thank you so much. Make sure you check Garry Cobb out on Fox 29 in Philadelphia. Thank you, my friend.
Have a good one. All right.
You got it. The great Garry Cobb. Yeah, rent's due. Rent is due, my friends. Hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.